Welcome to episode 432 of the Microsoft Cloud IT Pro podcast, recorded live on July 13, 2026. This is a show about Microsoft 365 and Azure from the perspective of IT pros and end users, where we discuss a topic or recent news and how it relates to you. In this episode, Ben and Scott discuss, deliberate, and pontificate on how consulting is changing as AI continues to grow. Part of that is AI doesn't eliminate Microsoft 365 and Azure consulting, but it does change how you do it and what you may do for your clients. Enjoy the show. Do you want to introduce our topic?
Sure.
All right.
There was an article that I saw come out a couple weeks ago, and I had sent it to you. And the kind of thought process and premise of that article, it came from the Wall Street Journal. And it's all about the shift in billing models for consultants in the age of AI. So as AI continues to mature, how do MSPs, folks like you with small consultancies, even larger consultancies, how do you think about changing your business model in the world of AI? So I thought that would be an interesting one to cover because I think it's been probably hitting you a little bit in your business from what we discussed. So it's kind of close and near and dear. But I think there's a bunch of different ways that we can kind of talk about and talk through how folks can think about shifting their businesses and their business models around M365 and Azure in particular, and what needs to potentially change in a delivery along the way. So I guess one of the things that I said, I saw this article, it kind of resonated with me, having been a former consultant, kind of being close to the work that you do and what was going on. It's like, ooh, this does make sense. The funny thing to me as I was reading it was it kind of sounded like part of the world that I used to do when I was in consulting. So I used to work for a couple different places where it was a mix of delivery models from hourly billing to fixed bid or more like structured statement of work. Like, hey, let's see, we'll come in and install an on-premises SharePoint environment for you kind of thing. And we think that's going to take this long with this many people for this size of environment. We'll configure it in this way. And that's going to cost you N dollars all rolled up. So if we come in under hours, great. We make a little extra money. If we come in over hours, well, that's on us.
Yep.
We eat it kind of thing. So I'm pretty used to that world of like fixed bid SOWs, which can be tough to do and kind of hit or miss in the cloud, because if you're doing something like, let's say, M365 governance, well, like, what does that really mean? And what are we going to do? And what are we going to dial into? Is it better to be hourly and sell a fixed number of hours? Can you get customers to do that? Or if not, how do you start to think about some of these things and pivot them to more outcome-driven deliveries and being able to like clearly articulate those outcomes for customers? And I think it is changing for customers, right? Like they're looking at these things. Maybe they think they can vibe code them quicker. Maybe, hey, if I've already deployed Copilot and Microsoft is pushing the Copilot train at me, why can't I just ask Copilot how to configure my environment? Isn't it supposed to tell me how to do those things? One would argue that it is supposed to tell you, but is it telling you the right thing and what to do along the way? Maybe, but also maybe not. So TLDR, hourly billing, I think, is a thing that's changing. It's something that folks need to think about, especially if you're out there consulting. I said, whether you're working for a company, delivering consulting services, maybe you're an MSP, things like that, and you have kind of a consulting bucket of hours, that world's probably changing. But my hypothesis, or I guess my argument would be that the AI thing doesn't eliminate the need for Microsoft 365 or Azure consulting, but it does change what customers think they're buying. So what customers are buying more and more, and arguably they've been buying this the whole time, although it's been abstracted away in different ways, is outcomes. Like they want to get to a certain place with a certain thing. So in that old world of just walking in and saying, well, like pay me hourly and we'll see how far we get kind of thing, they were buying your expert hours. Like they were buying your expertise and everything along the way. I think in that new world of we want to get to outcomes, or we want to get to measurable success criteria, that's going to be things like, let's go ahead and get us ready for M365 Copilot, but not just get us ready in these specific dimensions and dial those in. Could you do things like, rather than maybe working against like the well-architected framework in Azure land, maybe you start doing things like wrapping up landing zone deployments as fixed packages so that you get kind of that fixed set of outcomes for deploying a governed, like a well-governed Azure landing zone implementation for workload XYZ kind of thing. I think the other space that's kind of interesting, you and I were chatting about this as we're kind of prepping, is stuff like secure scores and your Defender for Cloud posture and all those kinds of things. Could you offer things that say, hey, take your secure score from X to Y, from this number to this number, or not from just X to Y? What if we did like XYZ and you had kind of like a good, better, best offering thing that you could put out there? So anywho, we should kind of like talk through this space and maybe why M365 and Azure are kind of good test beds or good places to go do like outcome driven deliveries, and what are some potential like practices or deliveries that could shape up around those technologies.
That's interesting. And I think the other aspect that we kind of talked about and how you touch on it is how AI can assist in these and why AI has caused people to think about this more. Because I would agree from my perspective and some of what I've seen and how I execute different projects now, AI has absolutely changed how I do it, which I think also plays an effect on some of how you start scoping out these different projects. So this is absolutely a fascinating conversation to kind of dig through.
Let's get into it. Where do you want to start? I mean, and I know it's near and dear to your heart, being a consultant and being in this space.
Yeah, it is. And we have a lot of notes here, and like this whole topic is just, it's a tough one to unwrap. I don't know. I don't know where to start on this, Scott. Maybe we should ask AI where to start on this. Maybe it is. It's the fact that I'm thinking,
why don't we do this?
I'm having the same thoughts you are about how do I change my offerings. Like, I'll be honest, and I haven't had conversations with all my clients yet. So if you're one of my clients, there might be a conversation coming about how I start structuring my new packages and how I'm going to adjust what I offer. And I would say this came somewhat before AI, but I think AI has accelerated how I'm thinking about, like you said, offering more of these these outcome-based deliveries is what I'm looking at. Like in the past, I have absolutely done everything from a T&M perspective, just straight up time and materials. And this isn't a secret. If you go to my website, you can start seeing it, how I'm adjusting where it's going to be like projects, where it's very much a fixed, I'm not going to say it's necessarily going to be fixed price, but it's very much a fixed project. Very well-defined statement of work. This is where we are. This is where we want to get to. Here's what we're going to deliver. Or doing a little bit more of shifting to what I would say more of a fractional M365 architecture type stuff that's going to lead to a little bit more of here's the value that I can deliver, not necessarily just call me up when you need something. There can be a part of that in there. And I know you and I have even talked about how you kind of package some of that up.
I guess we both agree that it's changing and that it's out there. So why don't we maybe talk through and start with some of the options around the different billing models and how those shape up, right? So I think we both agree that the world is changing a little bit there. So you've got a bunch of different pricing models that you can approach these things with. There's fixed fee pricing. There's the outcome-based stuff. I think there's also subscription pricing, and there's an argument to be made for hybrid. Like you're still going to have a world of hourly billing and combining that together. And then within those segments, like within like a fixed fee, an outcome-based, subscription, hybrid, whatever it happens to be, you've got kind of the on-the-ground view, or I guess the reality of what delivery looks like there. So that's a bunch of stuff that folks have already had. Like when I think about like the MSP space, repeatable IP, automation, things like that. All the, I guess, client prerequisites, like assessments, things like that happen. But there is that new nuance of like AI-assisted delivery that sits within there. So I think maybe if we talk through some of like the delivery models, like those pricing models and how they shape up, it'll kind of, it should form out and kind of bring it together.
If we start with the AI assisted, and this is where I've struggled with some of the pricing and how you start thinking through these projects, because I absolutely use AI in a lot of my projects. And there's a couple aspects to this, right? Like AI has absolutely made my deliveries faster. And this is where some of that comes in, where I was doing pure hourly and AI enables me, empowers me to do some of that quicker. AI is very good at some of the data analysis, some of the security assessment, some of that stuff that I used to do, which I'm still providing the same amount of value. But as I use AI, it allows me to do a portion of it faster, but it also changes. Like I absolutely still have to review some of the AI outcomes. AI still hallucinates. Surprise, it doesn't get everything right all the time. There's still a level of, there's still a level of expertise. Like I can use AI, but part of the ability I have to use AI when it comes to these deliveries is the fact that I also know what I'm looking for. So I know what to ask AI about. Like I can go export a whole bunch of data from Microsoft 365. I can get conditional access policies. I can get user account security groups. I can get DLP policies. But all of that stuff still has to work together, and you still have to know what you're looking for and what to ask AI about. So I think there's that level of expertise that as much as AI can assist with those deliveries, you still have to have a certain level of expertise to know how everything fits together, to know what you're looking for, to know where AI is hallucinating, and to know what data to tell AI to look at. So I think there's that aspect of it when it comes to these AI-assisted deliveries. The other thing that comes into play, guess what? If I ask AI to go look over like hundreds of CSV files with thousands and thousands of lines of data, I may get faster, but guess what? AI is expensive. There's also that aspect to, well, AI may help me do it faster. It is also more expensive for me to do it faster because AI is not cheap. So this is where I start thinking through, how do you start setting up these deliveries and thinking about consulting when it does come to something like a Microsoft 365 security audit, or just an audit of the overall configuration. And I would say, to my earlier point, certain things got faster, but I've also noticed the projects aren't, because of the new things I have to pay attention to or some of the things I'm able to incorporate, some of them actually aren't as much faster as I thought they would be when I start looking at hours.
It's interesting. So you've got this kind of, I think, explosion of artifacts that are all of a sudden available to you. So assessments become maybe not quicker to like draw out the telemetry, but certainly to analyze the telemetry for a given surface. So things like assessments go faster. Your whole kind of library, I guess, of scripts and run books and things like that begins to expand and explode. I've noticed in my world, even in like the internal things that I do, the number of, I guess, artifacts that I'm carrying around now for like bicep modules, ARM templates, Azure policies, things like that. It's just started to kind of like balloon and get a little bit out of control. Like I'm having to need to like go like organize all this stuff and Dewey Decimal System it soon. It's also the world of Copilot and these like prompt packs. So like the early stuff that's been going on with like getting good at prompt engineering, I think that's like a set of like reusable IP that everybody's building out on their own. And you can not only use that to accelerate your deliveries, but maybe it's also an offering that you kind of give to your customers that are out there. The other interesting thing that I've seen is not just like the assessment side of things, but selling the story about like what you're trying to achieve and what the outcomes are. So things like more like executive framed readouts or presentations become kind of part of that delivery window, right? And pushing things up there. So it's not necessarily a new world, but it is an additive world. So if you're like, I think if you're in a place where you've been doing this a while and you're a little bit mature, you've probably been pitching all along that like, let's take like Azure, for example. You make this shift from, we have people who know the portal. Great. You know how to do ClickOps. Awesome. How does that really help me? To something like, we have a delivery machine that can actually reliably improve your environment. And here's what that machine is. Here's what it does. Here's how long it's going to take us to get there. So you've probably had a bunch of these things all along. So like I imagine in your world, you have like a whole repository of scripts and things that sit out there. But now what you have to do is, you've already built the IP, you have the IP, you have those things. But now what you do is you have to get to the place where you can kind of sell the outcome and be able to measure the timeline ruthlessly, right? If you go and sell, or you've put together an offering that is effectively like, hey, this is going to take me an hour to deliver, and it ends up taking you 3 hours every time. Well, that's no good. You're not getting to where you need to be. So I think as like folks are out there and they're kind of evaluating all the things that exist and all the things that you've built up and what's going on, you really start to take a step back and think about like, what's the baseline? What are the metrics that matter here? Like, what is success criteria? And what's the criteria that I'm going to sell to my customers? And what are my customers going to take as like evidence of success along the way? And then I think the other thing you get to sell is LLMs are good at some things, or great at some things. But I found, especially in M365 land, they love to hallucinate. Like asking an LLM to like fire off a work IQ query is sometimes like, oof, where did you come up with that thing? So I think making sure that there's more like human in the loop and expertise around like hallucinated reports, or like doing those kind of like gut checks, right? So you're still an expert in your space. You're going to know, and it's probably not going to pass the sniff test for you if somebody goes and runs like a random query with an LLM against something, versus you just know the way this telemetry comes together and what can be presented out of it, kind of thing. So you get a couple different gut checks in there, effectively like the advisory stuff, which is still important, right? And like that's not an inconsequential thing.
If you're managing file storage today, you've probably felt the pressure. Refresh cycles are harder to plan, costs and complexity are increasing, especially as file workloads scale across regions. That's why Microsoft customers trust Nasuni. As an Azure certified software, Nasuni provides a global file system designed for enterprise-scale environments, keeping file data secure, governed, and accessible across Azure environments without added infrastructure complexity. It's the foundation to keep your unstructured data stable, even as your infrastructure evolves. To see how much you could save while keeping your initiatives on track, visit nasuni.com/TCO. That's nasuni.com/TCO. That's another area that I've kind of found in talking to different people, and where people are still coming to me for questions is what you just said, some of the advisory and the architecture type stuff. And that's where a lot of that expertise and what people still need is, I have found AI is really good at looking at data. AI can go take a whole bunch of data from Microsoft 365 and it can tell me where are the shortcomings? Where do I have security gaps? Where do I have potential misconfigurations? Okay, great. I've identified all of these things now, leveraging AI of what needs to be done. How do you go actually interface with the users now? How do you go start taking everything that maybe you've identified and architecting out a solution to solve all of that, where you're not going to impact the business, where you're figuring out, how do I start piloting this? How do I make these tweaks? How do I make these changes? What does this overall architecture look like that maybe solves some of this? And I think that's where there's still a lot of value too when you are doing the Microsoft 365 consulting, where you are still doing the Azure consulting, is it's getting a little bit more into some of those, I don't know if you'd call them soft skills or the more architecture type skills, the design skills that AI can give you ideas, but AI also hasn't been in there. Like, part of the advantage I've had is customers ask me, well, how did you do this with another client? What worked? What didn't work? From a working with humans perspective, from a things you don't necessarily think about in terms of a deployment plan or where users are going to get tripped up, all of that type of stuff, there's still a lot of value in that in the AI world. And I think where a lot of consultants start focusing on this AI world, where it's good at producing results, it's good at looking at data, but it's not always good at knowing how is this going to impact users and how do I work with users to react to architect, whatever that may be, to whatever I've discovered and investigated using AI as a support tool, as another tool in my toolbox.
The expertise of consultants doesn't go away in this world, would be my kind of assertion. So, and I think that's what you're saying too, is there's a certain degree of the tools that exist today can tell you what. They can tell you how. They can't always tell you why. And they can't always tell you how in context of the overall constraints of an environment. So if I think about something like Secure Score, in isolation, sounds like a great thing. Like, hey, I want to go from, what's the max for a Secure Score these days? 800, something like that. Like, I don't know. You sit down and you look at your secure score and you go, ooh, I'm 450 and I want to go to 800. Well, maybe going to 800 isn't the best idea because you're going to do a lot of things that maybe aren't applicable to your environment. But I guarantee you, when you look at secure score, it's going to keep pushing you and saying, do more. Same thing with like Copilot readiness. I think that would be another kind of big area in this kind of current phase of M365, things like this, is like, you can go get a Copilot readiness report. Is that readiness report actually going to get you to the spot where you can configure your licensing properly, where you can go and configure your, not just your environment configuration, but also your SharePoint sites and everything else that are out there in a way that are going to like deliver the right amount of value for your business? I don't know. Probably not, right? That's still where you're paying somebody else for their expertise along the way. So for something like Secure Score, you don't want to have a customer walk in and just think like, oh, hey, there has to be this wild movement. Like I need to go from 450 to 800. No, you don't. Like you have to go from maybe a different X to Y. But like, here's what you're getting out of that. Like, here's the reduction in risk. Here's the improvement in your posture within your organization. Those kinds of things. So I think that's all good stuff. And it doesn't take away from like the expertise that folks have built up over the years. Like there is that adage, right? Like when you have like somebody, like a tradesperson come into your house, so like, hey, you get a plumber and it takes a plumber 10 minutes to fix the leak under your sink, but you have to pay them for an hour of their time. Well, yeah, you're not just paying them for the hour to pay them for the hour. You're paying them for their 10, 20 plus years of experience. And that's how they're able to get it done in 10 minutes. So that part's not going away either in this world.
I had that the other day. I tried to fix my own, I did fix my own shower, Scott. I fixed a leak in my shower, but it took me like 8 or 9 hours. And had I paid a plumber, it probably would have taken him like 2, because he would have known all the tricks. And this is how you get this particular part out of the shower to stop the leak. And I ended up like 3 trips to Home Depot and a trips to a friend's house for tools and all of this. So yeah, I think that absolutely still applies to this world as well. And another one of these, like going back to the secure score, I'm working with a client right now and they're like, we need to implement CIS benchmarks across our entire environment. CIS has a great set of, here's everything you need to do. It's like 657 lines in an Excel spreadsheet. AI did a great job at looking through the PDF and creating the Excel spreadsheet. It did a great job at it. Like, let's look at all the categories. How can we maybe lump these settings together? How can we best deploy different settings in a logical way so settings are grouped together logically? But it sure can't tell me which users are using which functionality, or how is turning on this particular setting going to affect users in finance versus IT. How are we going to go through and push all these 650 settings out to 6,000 users without disrupting the business? That's where a lot of that value still comes in. My computer is beeping at me with alerts.
It's beeping.
We've talked about this for years too, right? Like when we went from on-prem to cloud, how what you do and maybe how you do things changes as technology evolves. I think the age of AI consulting, or AI-assisted consulting, we're kind of at that point now where, and we talked about this on an episode, I can't remember which one, where a lot of the same stuff, it's not like jobs as Microsoft 365 consultants, Azure consultants is going to go away, but you do need to start thinking through, how does your job as a consultant change, and where are you going to bring value now? Because now you do have new tools, you have new ways you can bring value. Maybe you can save time doing one thing, but you're going to spend more time bringing value in another way. There's that continued evolution in this consulting world. I've been doing it for 25 years now, and I can tell you what I did 25 years ago. If I kept doing that today, I probably wouldn't have any work to do. You're always thinking, how do these changing tools, the changing landscape, change what I do, and where can I continue to provide value and leverage the changing in technology to my benefit? And I think we're absolutely in that spot with AI too.
How much do you think about in the accelerated delivery world? So you can create these artifacts quicker, right? So you can go create something can go and create a shell script or a Python thing that's going to read your PDF, convert it to Excel, blah, 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 blah. Do all the things it needs to do. And it's going to push it out there. Great, you can go faster, but still you need that human in the loop thing. So there's now maybe like a need for increased review or like more diligence around review. And yeah, I think like my assertion would be like, you have to put that diligence in because it's your reputation on the line. Because now you're selling outcomes. You're not just selling hours. It's not like, oh, hey, buy 10 hours from me. And if you need more, that's great. If we don't use them, whatever. You're kind of like in that example of taking like CIS benchmarks and bringing them through to an environment, like you're selling an outcome of like CIS implementation across these categories, or across like 50% of these in this category, 25% over here, or 100% of everything that's out there kind of thing. So that's another one that I think is interesting to me, is like the whole risk reward thing, or the ratio for like reputational harm. Like, should you just generate something fast and it goes out there and it doesn't align to either the outcomes that customers were purchasing, or it's just like wildly wrong, right? So the customer thinks they're getting an outcome and then they walk away happy and you're like, oh, great, I delivered it. But it turns out that nobody actually got what they wanted, or the customer didn't achieve what they wanted in that world.
And it doesn't align. And this is where I've absolutely spent more diligence. To your point, I can create an assessment document, but I do spend more time reading through it because maybe AI generated a lot of it. And I don't want it to have things in there that are blatantly wrong. To your point earlier, I'm going to read through it and make sure I don't have any, to make sure that my gut instinct about what should be there and what I know should be there and what I've seen in the past is correct. But also taking some of that and aligning it to what I know the customer needs. Because leading up to that, I'll have phone calls with customers. Oh, we didn't do this for this and this reason. Or we tried this and it didn't work for X, Y, and Z reason. There's a lot of intricacies that I may know that I've written down based on conversations with clients that may not necessarily align with some of these outcomes. So I'm being very diligent in going through here to make sure that maybe what got generated aligns based on all the other conversations I've had with the client and all the history I have with that client, what I know about their environment, what I know about their users. And that's where I think some of where you spend your time shifts. Because you are doing more of that gut checking, that alignment after the fact now, as opposed to when I would maybe run PowerShell scripts and write the entire document by hand. I know what's in the document because I wrote it all, and I'm doing that as I'm writing it. Now I'm just doing it afterwards.
It's a shift there. So I think there's another, I wonder how much you're running into this. So maybe one last question we can go through to pick your brain here. So there's been this thing, I think, where particularly in the fixed delivery space, MSPs especially, like you develop like your set of IP. So you end up with like this bank of scripts, things like that. I never ran into like customers really asking for like, hey, what's the thing you're running? Or like, what do you actually run under the hood to do that assessment? They always just wanted the assessment at the end. Like, again, get me to the outcome that you told me we're going to get to. I wonder, like, are customers kind of pushing back at all? Or do you find them coming in and really asking for some kind of visibility into like the things that you are running or what you're creating and what's out there? Because there is this certain like kind of risk matrix as well to think about, like, oh, hey, I hired this person to come into my environment and they say they're going to run a PowerShell script, or they want to install this application on my server to be able to do this assessment, or they're asking for a user account with this level of permissions so they can go against the Graph API and get what they need to be. Like, do you find them asking for those artifacts for evaluation or anything like that?
I haven't seen that change a whole lot in terms of what they're asking for. Before this, over the last few years, I will have customers ask for a script. They're like, do you have a PowerShell script? Or you generated this, do you have the script that you use to export all of that? I haven't seen that changing a whole lot. Maybe now they're asking, I had one I was talking to recently that was like, do you have the skills, the MD files, the skills that you used in AI to help you generate this? And that's one of those, to your point, like, I think that starts turning into more intellectual property. I will say in the past, if I have a client I'm working with and I generate a certain report for them and they want some of that, this may be good, may be bad. I tend to share it with them. Like, they don't need to come back to me and pay me every 3 months to generate the same thing. I would rather provide value in other ways, help them with new things rather than just generating the same outcomes for them over and over again. Part of that's my personality. I get bored with that. Like, I don't need to do the same thing every month if they want to do it themselves. I'd rather have them come to me with their new challenges, their new struggles, and help them with the new stuff. But that is one area in terms of asking for some of the artifacts and stuff behind the scenes. What they may ask for has changed, but the level of them asking or the amount of times they ask, I haven't seen them asking for it more than maybe they did in the past.
Gotcha. I wonder if that shifts more and more over time. Or if customers are just going out and creating their own stuff, right? So it goes both ways. Like, you can kind of iterate faster on the front end and then therefore go do these deliveries. I would imagine that there's also a subset of customers that can say like, oh, hey, Ben gave me this great report on my environment. It gave me a set of action items to go and do. What if I just like backport that report and say like, hey, how could I generate this? Like, throw that PDF or that Word doc at an LLM and say, how could I generate this report myself? Like, go write me a bunch of scripts, right? Or PowerShell, Bash, whatever it happens to be to spin things up.
It will be interesting to see how that changes, is even what IP changes. This is not me. I had this conversation though recently with one of my contractors where there's a lot of websites out there where people were providing a lot of value for writing PowerShell script. It's like, here's a PowerShell script to go do ABC, go export all my mailboxes, go bulk make this change on users in Entra. He's like, that's changed. That's
maybe like what Tony Redmond's done over the years with like the Office 365 for IT pros, the book, but he's got like that whole GitHub repo, and him and his team of folks have that GitHub repo out there with tons of sample scripts. They're often updated for like latest iterations of the graph, things like that, as he's going through and running into things. So yeah, those resources exist, and you can go like, it's super easy these days. You don't have to know how Git works. You can.
But is there going to be demand for those resources going forward? I think the demand for those has changed because people are so much quicker to say, Claude, ChatGPT, go write me a script for this. It's interesting to see, or will be interesting to see.
I think it's going to swing back.
I guess what resources are going to be in demand as time continues to progress and as AI can do certain things.
That's the whole human in the loop thing. And nothing's going to account for expertise and taste, right? To be able to put these things together. So can an LLM go and write you a PowerShell script? Yes. Can it interrogate the Graph API for you? Sure. Is it going to do it the right way? Or is it going to bring back like the right set of data? Like sometimes I think you don't know. I run into this like regularly in my world where folks are going and they're creating these solutions. Like they look really pretty and could be a dashboard or like an assessment engine, things like that. And then you start to dig into some of the details and you're like, this feels like it's kind of like not right, potentially wildly wrong. And you ask them like, well, how did you get here? Like, what was the input? Like, can you go tell me, maybe it's like a Kusto query kind of thing. Can you go tell me the Kusto query? I didn't write that Kusto query. The LLM wrote it for me. Well, how do you know if it's good? How do you know if that's right? How do you know if it was the right data source? Well, I don't know. It just told me. And they kind of take that as fact. And then you do things like, oh, hey, great. I put the query together, but then the magical LLM thing decided to wrap it in a Python script. Okay, cool. Do you know Python? No, I don't know any Python. Do you know what it's doing? Nah, I don't know what it's doing. It's running the script. It's a script that runs a script that runs a script. Like, we might want to think about that one, right? And come back along the way. So I do think there's value in that stuff. Like if I think about like the world of hopefully like the stuff that like the Tony Redmonds of the world are doing doesn't go away, because I think those are the more opinionated, arguably more tasteful solutions rather than something that's just been spun up by an LLM or a set of agents, things like that. Like, can they get the job done? Sure. Are they going to do it as efficiently, as tastefully, but with the same level of, I think, like care, like as you're going like step by step through the process? Probably not. So, if somebody like Tony can write a script 10x faster because he's got access to an LLM, that's pretty cool, right? Like hopefully that leads to like more outputs there. And then folks like us, like the mere mortals, we can ground our learning and ground our stuff in that. Like I think you'd have a way better experience probably going out to something like their GitHub repo for that. Like I think they just renamed the book actually Microsoft 365 for IT pros finally. But go out to that Git repo and clone that repo and say, hey, can you build me a script that does this, or can you extend this script, rather than start from scratch kind of thing.
It's interesting to see how all this is changing.
It keeps going along the way. And then, like you said, make sure you charge enough money to cover your AI usage.
Because let me tell you, the amount I pay for AI is continuing to go up, partly due to using it more, partly due to people changing pricing on me or stuff coming out of preview. And
pricing will continue to change on you, by the way. So hold on to your checkbook or your wallet. And as you hold on to it, just prepare to open it and have the money fly.
But in the meantime, I have Fable 5 for an extra week now.
They did Fable 5 for an extra week. Yeah. So yeah, by the time this comes out, Fable 5 may or not still be there. So OpenAI, Codex also got rid of the 5-hour window limit. And I don't know if you've been playing around with 5.6. So you've got like Luna, Terra, and Sol, like good, better, best kind of effort and reasoning, things like that. Like 5.6 Sol is pretty good. So if you have the option and you're looking out there and you're like, hey, I'm stuck in like, it's going to be interesting over the next like couple of months, I think, while the frontier model trainers and like AI delivery companies like Anthropic and OpenAI, things like that, have to now compete with local model weights that are coming out from China and other places, and kind of where they sit and how that stuff comes together. So we'll see, like, can Anthropic keep up and get rid of the 5-hour window or the 5-hour usage reset window? I don't know. Be kind of nice. I'd enjoy it. But, you know, I see OpenAI doing some things that make me go like, ooh, hey, maybe I should go back and be in that ecosystem. Or it keeps you kind of like, you keep your toe in the water for both of them, which makes it really
I don't keep my toe in the water for both anymore. I can't.
I'm still there and I'm still trying. Like, I'm a Claude fanboy, but like I said, they're doing some interesting stuff over in OpenAI land. Yeah. As long as you avoid their whole like super app crap that they just came up with last week. That thing's horrible. Stay away from that.
That wrap us up. Anything else? I think that covers it. We've been going for like 45 minutes now.
I think that covers it. Hopefully it gives some folks some things to noodle on. If you're out there in the consulting or delivery space and you have any opinions or feedback, go to our website, hit the contact form, let us know what's going on, or comment on the podcast on your platform of choice.
Absolutely. And until next time, Scott.
Until next time.
If you enjoyed the podcast, go leave us a 5-star rating in iTunes. It helps to get the word out so more IT pros can learn about Office 365 and Azure. If you have any questions you want us to address on the show or feedback about the show, feel free to reach out via our website, Twitter, or Facebook. Thanks again for listening and have a great day.